Awful lot has happened to American society and to the world over the past 3 years. But for our media and political class, most of it goes unmentioned because they're talking about something else. They're talking about January 6th, the most solemn day in American history, a moment worse than Pearl Harbor, worse than 9/11, worse than the American Civil War. That's what they're telling us. It's hard to respond to this because even now, 3 years later, most Americans have no real sense of what happened on January 6th, and any attempts to tell them have been suppressed by the big tech companies or shouted down by NBC News and CNN and other news organizations. That's odd if you think about it. Why do most of us have no real idea what happened? There's probably no event in American history that was filmed by more people from more angles than January 6th. And yet, until very recently, no one had put together a timeline. What happened? People walked, some of them from the White House to the Capitol. Some of them went inside the building.
Perfect.
And we've been talking about the aftermath. But how did all of that happen? It's on tape. Why haven't we seen it?
Make it smaller than that.
Well, if you've watched Joe Biden recently, you know why you haven't seen it. Because January 6th is a perfect way for the Democratic Party and, by the way, the Republican Party, the party that controls this country,
Alexander is always
the uniparty,
He's the
to
problem.
get what it wants, to suppress the
Well, not
population,
anymore,
to keep
but-
Donald Trump from running for president again, and to put its enemies in jail. Just the other day, Joe Biden, often derided as senile, didn't seem senile at all as he gave a speech about January 6th. He seemed like a fascist. Watch this. Watch Joe Biden celebrate the fact that his political opponents were sent to prison, and listen as the crowd applauds him, bragging about how these Trump voters are rotting in prison. Watch.
Since that day, more than 1,200 people have been charged for their assault on the Capitol. Nearly 900 of them have been convicted or pled guilty. Collectively, to date, they have been sentenced to more than 840 years in prison. What's Trump done? Instead of calling them criminals, he's called these insurrectionists patriots.
He's a vicious and cruel and hollow man and rarely gets the credit for any of that. But it was on display in that speech. It's on display all around.
That's good, yeah.
We hate that guy. Oh, my God, I hate that piece of crap.
He's a vicious
Sorry.
and
I'm
cruel.
trying not to swear for my Christian friends.
I don't even hate him. I think he's not really a real person. He's just a puppet.
So welcome to Behind Enemy Lines, deep in a bunker in the heart of communist Illinois.
Where even the Republicans are trying to destroy us.
You're going to hear about that. So we're excited to have Daniel Goodwyn on the show today. So Daniel put together the documentary that Tucker was going to actually talk about. We kind of cut it short. We're going to show a trailer right before he gets on. So you're going to hear some of the true timeline of things that occurred. And some of the stuff that, I experienced, Daniel, as well as, he got arrested. He's going to tell his story.
Terry, you better be careful. You might be signing your own warrant today.
Yeah, well, I left before anybody. I left before people went in. I left before people went past the police.
I'm just reminding you to make that, make that statement that you have to.
Just to be clear, I got those Antifa prickwads that are like watching, and they're tagging me. They put me in sedition hunters.
Well, even our Republicans.
Our own Republican. We'll talk about that later. Oh my God,
they put that picture.
Yeah, we got Republicans using Antifa propaganda. So yes, I was there. I was there with a very good friend. I got his permission. I'm not going to mention his name. Cook County Sheriff, we all know him. He retired. He retired then. He was with me. You're going to see his picture. Antifa's stalking him. They don't know him, but we're going to show his picture on there. So then next week, we got super, super important national news that we're going to be exposing here for the first time on Behind Enemy Lines. I'm going to be on Emerald Robinson's show tomorrow talking about it, and she used to be a White House correspondent. We have evidence from the Chicago Police Department, FOIA, of human sex trafficking going inside one of Brandon Johnson's Pilsen illegal immigrant Venezuela shelters. There's also like 4-year-old kids getting abused. There's trying to recruit 11-year-old girls, and these are being used off of taxpayer phones. So you're going to hear more about that next week Excited to talk about it with Emerald tomorrow. We'll have it on our show. So, Paul, go ahead, and then we're gonna have Daniel on.
Yeah, well, we'll also probably have a Gateway Pundit article on that, right?
Oh yeah.
So we'll be able to put out the details of the FOIA, what it shows. We did one of those with Gateway Pundit already for the hotel on Ohio Street. So we got another one coming, and this one is also going to talk about, like Terry said, the phones that they're using, which we're paying for, and there's a lot of detail with that. We also have a story coming out soon about the sheriff in DuPage County.
What's his name, by the way?
Sheriff, I hate to say his name because I feel like I'll turn into a stone or something. But Sheriff Mendrick.
You didn't say it right.
Oh, yeah. What was it
It's
again?
Mendick.
Mendick? Okay.
His middle name's Little.
So we had two parts in the Gateway Pundit about Illinois rhinos. You know, we talked about Don Tracy, who ran as a Democrat. We talked about John Kern, who advocated for Amendment 1, voted for Amendment 1, took teacher union money, and basically, you know, helped bring in the fourth branch of government to Illinois, and, you know, subsequently Illinois communism.
So just read it.
And then we're going to talk about Sheriff Mendrick and how he's weaponizing law enforcement against Republicans in Illinois. So we're going to have that story out on Gateway Pundit. We'll put it out for you. And what else do we got, Terry? Anything? Am I missing anything?
You got we have a guest coming next week.
Yeah. We're going to talk about. So there was a Gateway Pundit story that we did not write.
Yeah.
But
Someone
about
beat Paul to
Downers
it.
Grove. Yeah, about Downers Grove. And this is a big national story. A lot of people that we've been working with. I spoke at the village council meeting the other day on behalf of our friend Bill Nienberg, who is a lone conservative on the Downers Grove Library Board. And essentially, we sat there. 99% of the people spoke in favor of Bill. And they kicked him off anyway, basically, for being difficult to work with.
It was rigged, though. They knew it.
Of course. This is like this. I'm not kidding, folks. If you want to watch the Downers Grove Village Council meeting from April, what's today?
We should put it on our website. Right?
April, 16th. We'll put it out on our website.
We'll have to put that on the website.
And if you watch that, it's basically 99% of public comment is in favor of Bill Nienberg. And the reason for that is because they kicked him off the board. And Terry, remember, we were talking to the people in the group, and what they said was that Bill and the library board, because they appoint them, serve at their pleasure so they can kick him off whenever they want. One of our warriors, Noel Manley, sent an email to the village council pointing out that there's an Illinois statute that says that you can't do that. It has to be by misconduct or something other. He did this the day before so we can catch him off guard. All they did was they changed the language in the village agenda to say that it was misconduct. But then when the extreme leftists on the village board explained why they were kicking Bill off, they're voting to kick Bill off of the board, it was all of this nonsense about, he didn't make enough meetings, which there's no rules against that. He's not collaborative. They kept saying that. He's not collaborative. It's like, okay. And my message was, this country was built on the idea that the minority voice needs to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
You know? And they're all about, like, he's not collaborative. He's not working with the board, blah, blah, blah. And this is all because he didn't like the idea that they were going to do drag queen bingo at the library and target kids, and that he stuck up for another guy who wanted to put messages on the library that were pro-veteran during Memorial Day.
I did an interview, Drag Queen Bingo, in front of the library. I had this very same shirt on, right? This shirt right here. Benjamin Franklin,
Don't tread
I
on
think, right? Benjamin Franklin had something
Don't
to do
tread
with
on me.
right in this shirt. And the leftists, when I was being interviewed about, they had some transvestite, Aurora Devine, nasty, raunchy, nastiest performer come to perform for children at the library. And I spoke out very nice about it. I said it doesn't belong in the library, not against gay kids. So the radical leftists that are going after Bill said that this is a Proud Boy shirt. This is a racist shirt. This shirt right here. all the comments that were, the
Because
same
it was
people.
yellow and black.
Yeah,
probably.
the same people that were attacking Bill. So these guys are whack jobs. So we're going to get in depth with him next week. And
there was a comment in the meeting because they had a library meeting about the drag queen bingo. They canceled that event. So they're still salty about that. That the one guy that was against it is still on the board. They canceled that event, and then the people, and I was at that meeting, the people that said the reason they canceled it, the village council members said the reason they canceled it was because they had threats and blah, blah, blah. Well, here's the problem.
FOIA'd 'em.
They think we're stupid, so we FOIA'd them, and the police department had said there's no credible threats whatsoever. It's the fact that the entire community didn't want it. So again, and now you have 99% of the community in public comments speaking for Bill Nienberg, keep him on the board because he did nothing wrong besides disagree with people who wanted to put drag queen bingo at our library. And this time they went full authoritarian and just decided to kick him off. So we're going to talk to Bill. Bill's going to finally be able to air his grievances
with me together before he was getting interviewed with just Paul.
Right.
Because he didn't want to get tarnished by my reputation.
Now he doesn't have to worry about it. And one other point is, in both instances where the library board recommended that he be removed and to the village council during their meeting, and then 2 nights ago when they voted to kick him off the board in the village council meeting, Bill wasn't present. And the irony is, one of the people suggested that they could have moved the library board meeting, and they didn't on purpose. So
we'll talk all about that next week.
They didn't move this one either.
Is Daniel ready?
Yeah, let's do the IFA commercial.
There he is.
Jack.
Okay. Oh, there he is.
Mm-hmm.
We could do that at the end if he's
Can't
ready.
get arrested
Is he
again,
ready?
right,
Is he
Daniel?
on?
Let's just do this quick. You can talk to him when we do that.
Okay. We're gonna do a commercial right now, real quick, Daniel. Hey, Sherry Tucci, we're posting this for you next Wednesday. Come to the Jesus, I forgot what's the name of the church there.
The American Church.
The American Church. We're in America, right?
Yeah.
So we're
Letter to the AmericanChurch.com.
Yes, so we're gonna be able to have the opportunity to see the Epoch Times movie Letter to the American Church, sponsored by TPUSA, Sherry Tucci, all her friends, patriots. You got to show up and check this out. I'm going to go there with my 85-year-old mama, Miss Grandma Trump, Marge Newsom. She'll be there with me, and I'm looking forward to seeing this. So, Sherry Tucci, I hope you're watching. We got your little slide up there, and we're going to show a trailer right now for the J6, A True Timeline story, and then Daniel's in the waiting room. As soon as the trail's over, we're going to pop him in here. So go ahead, buddy.
What if I told you that the full story of January 6th isn't what you've been led to believe? What if I told you at least 4 unarmed people were killed at the Capitol that day? What if I told you that there were no published restricted zones available to the public? What if I told you that police removed hundreds of barricades from the area of the first breach? What if you were given the full context so that you can decide for yourself?
GDU 24 to the priority. We have a breach on the west front, 1st Street. Breach, multiple units. Send all you have.
That's our house!
GDU 24. Need extra units up on the terrace. I need the less than lethal team positioned above me to identify the agitators and start deploying. Launch!
You're shooting her!
With an individual unconscious and not breathing.
Let's go! Shoot it! Go! Shoot! Shoot! Stay on the plane! Put it down, douchebag! Hey! Fire! Hey, fire!
We got another individual down. People are going CPR.
We're taking out one, and 10 of them are getting angrier. We're multiplying them by hitting them.
This is 2021, y'all. This is insanity. They set us the up. That's what they did. They set us up.
We are going to get overrun on the steps of the Capitol right now. 10,000 to 1. We're going to lose the steps, and we're getting people hurt like a mother.
There's a gun! There's a gun! Oh! They just killed the girl! Back up! Damn it, back the up!
Sir, I have 75 people inside the Senate chambers. They are going through death.
(2024).
Hey, Daniel. Man, I get goosebumps.
Don't you
seeing
hate
that.
it when a flashlight isn't a lightsaber?
I get. Sorry. Are you there? Can you hear us, buddy?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hey, man, welcome. I get goosebumps seeing that.
Thanks for having me on.
brother J6er. Except I got off easy because I was not there when anyone went in. But thank you very much for that. That was an awesome documentary, as Tucker said, and I think it was your first. Was that your first documentary too?
No, that was the fourth one. We put one out every year since January 6th.
Oh wow!
Oh, really?
So,
Okay.
so
What are the other
nice,
two
nice,
named?
Nice. This is my partner, Paul Draper.
Nice to meet you, Daniel.
Combat vet, not a J6er.
Yeah, I know. I wanted to go too. I think it's probably a good thing I didn't go though.
So how about this? Why don't you just give an introduction to yourself? We'll let you do an introduction to yourself. Talk about a little bit about the documentary and what compelled you to go down there in the first place, and some of the things that happened to you, and then we'll pick up after you do that, your introduction.
Sure. Well, first off, it's actually people are still getting arrested right now. So, and it's
Right.
not just people who were.
Hello, my friend. I am Charlie Simons. Welcome to Do Not
What
Talk.
is that?
Talking about two things you're never supposed to talk about: religion and
Wait,
politics.
is that-
Well, dude, that's how it's done, son.
We're killed.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you so
It's coming
much
from
for.
one-
Hold on, Daniel. Sorry about this.
There we go. Sorry. I think that was my end. I think I just fixed it.
Oh,
Oh,
this is
okay.
Dan. Okay, he fixed it. He got it. Yeah.
Sorry about that. So,
That's all right.
anyways, yeah, people are still getting arrested, and it's not just people who went in the building. It's
Oh,
people
shit.
who
Oh,
glass
shit.
nearby.
Oh,
They've
no.
arrested around 1,400 people, and they're going to go up to 3,000. They say they've basically been arresting somebody every single day.
I might be
So
doing this
doesn't
show by
necessarily mean
myself
you're in the
coming
clear.
soon.
And even people who the FBI says they come to your house, they talk to you and interview you, and then say you're not a person of interest, they'll come back and arrest you later, like they did to my friend Bill.
Terry's freaking out right now, Daniel,
Holy
because
shit! You're serious?
basically what you just said. Because Terry was on the grounds during
Oh no!
that
Really?
time. I mean, I don't think
Yeah,
it's
you
any
don't have to
secret.
have done anything wrong to be arrested for January 6th. Actually, most of the people were completely nonviolent and didn't realize they were trespassing.
It probably doesn't help.
I
that you're
walked
doing
in through
this.
open doors. I was in the building for between 30 and 40 seconds, and they arrested me that month.
Oh my God! You just gave me a heart attack, Dan.
So yeah, sorry for
I'm
the
just telling you the
reactions.
truth. Would you rather
Yeah.
know, or
No,
would you rather be
I think,
surprised?
yeah, I think he would rather know. So you you have done one documentary every year after this had happened. Now, can you just so what about your persecution? Can you describe that a little bit? Like, well, first of all,
Absolutely.
were you?
Let me just
were
say
you
one more
on the
thing about what I
grounds?
was saying.
Sure.
There was
go ahead.
probably about 10,000 people in that area that they, after the fact, have decided as a restricted area. So doing the math on what they say, that's probably a 1 in 3 chance somebody who hasn't been arrested yet will get arrested. So I would say lawyer up. But yeah, I got arrested in that month, and I was actually in jail pretrial for 3 weeks. And it was solitary confinement 24/7. They called it COVID quarantine lockdown. And after that, I had 1 year of House arrest. That was all pre-trial.
House arrest.
When I was in jail, they charged me with 4 misdemeanors to get me in jail. While I was in jail, they added a 5th charge, which was actually a felony that carries 20 years. And that's the same one that Trump got and about 300 other people have got. Several people have been
What was that
convicted,
charge, Daniel?
guilty to. And
what was that specific charge, Daniel?
it's called obstruction of an official proceeding. And the Supreme Court was just hearing this a day or two ago, and they're going to decide probably by the end of June. So that could be a huge thing for J6ers if they rule in the right way. So everyone needs to be.
So that's going to be up for the Supreme Court, the obstruction.
Yeah, they already talked about it on C-SPAN 2 days ago. You can check that out. It's about an hour long.
What's
but they
the
haven't
idea
ruled
there
yet,
that
so they're going to rule.
What's the idea there that it's unconstitutional?
The law itself?
Yeah.
So basically, the law it comes from the Sarbanes.
Yep.
Sarbanes-Oxley.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like under the Bush administration. It's an Enron era, basically paper shredding thing. It has to do with if you're going to go to Congress and they're going to use these documents, so you go shred them so they can't use them. That's that kind of obstruction of justice. So basically, the defense is arguing that they're misapplying the intent of Congress in that law. And actually, even you can look at what George Bush said when he signed it. So it should be a slam dunk. People feel pretty optimistic about the way that the Supreme Court justices were talking about it, thinking maybe that Amy Coney Barrett, is that her name, would be the swing on this one.
Sure.
So we're hoping she does the right thing.
Well, the idea of Daniel, the idea here is this is the kind of thing that people talk about when they use the term lawfare, right?
Absolutely.
That the left is using lawfare to try to wedge in this obsolete law to this situation for political persecution, right?
Yeah, and sorry for talking so fast, but you asked me like 3 things, and I'm trying to get them all in before you ask me the next thing. So I actually had a 2 months prison sentence, which came from, they tried to get me to plead to that 1512, and I told them no, but they came back and let me plead to a misdemeanor. So that was basically a trespassing charge. So that's how I ended up with a 2 months prison sentence on top of that year of house arrest and the 3 weeks in jail. Well, they take the 3 weeks out of the 2 months. But then after that, I have a year of supervised release and a $3,000 payment that was part of my sentence as well. Wow. So that's kind of what's been going on with me specifically as my punishment. And then to answer your question about the documentaries, in 2001, we came out with Writing History. That's RIGHTING, Writing History, Journalistic Battle for January 6th. And we put that out in June on Rumble. It's free to watch. All 4 of these are. And that one is 30-something minutes long. And we got all the footage we could from us and our friends and stuff that was online. We put it together in chronological order, and we synchronized some cameras together so you could see, for example, when Ashley Babbitt's getting shot from multiple angles, what's going on there. So we did that. Then that was back when everyone was afraid to talk about January 6th. Well, the next year we put out Bloody Hill, and that one was a little bit more cinematic. We included 3 people talking about it. That first one was just with me and David Summerall at Stop Hate. The second one, we also added on Wano Savin and Trennis Evans from Condemned USA. They were all being interviewed, and we had a couple other people helping on the project. J.D. Rivera is another J6er, and Sean Witzman is another J6er, and Andrew Molinax helping us edit that. So that one is, it's got the music and all that. It's a little bit more, it's got the narrative, and it's themed around the 7 deadly sins or the 7 abominations from the Bible. And they, basically talk about those things, and we weave that into the narrative about what actually happened on January 6th. And so that was put out in July of 2022. Now in 2023, we put out just a 5-minute video, which is basically a teaser for the 1-hour documentary we just put out. So the 5-minute one was called 1,000 Days of Terror, and it came out 1,000 days after January 6th. And it shows how the police instigated January 6th protests into a fight and a riot by shooting into the crowd, and an Antifa instigator shoved a guy into the police line, all that happening at 1:07 p.m. And then the full January 6th true timeline movie that you guys showed the trailer for, that just came out on New Year's. Mm-hmm. So that's as quick as I can go to answer that question real brief.
No, sure, thanks. I was just trying to understand the history because I hadn't known that you had done the three.
Yeah.
Other
Oh, one more
documentaries.
thing. That last movie I just mentioned, I worked on it with David Summerall of Stop Hate and also another J6er called AJ Fisher, Paul Eskendon, Jason Rink, and me, and all 5 of us were the producers on that.
So I know you're not an attorney, right? But to your comment about the trespassing thing, is there like a statute of limitations for trespassing?
That's a good question. I'm not actually sure about that.
I hope so.
You're freaking Terry out over here. So, Daniel, were you at January 6th for the purpose of documenting it, or did that just happen organically?
Yeah, yes and no. So I would say, I was there for many First Amendment reasons. One of them was, as a citizen journalist for Stop Hate, I had been covering things like Stop the Steal, like Trump rallies, and I had been just posting videos on social media. And we expected Antifa might be there causing trouble, so I was going to be able to be on the lookout to get video of that. And we also expected for there to be massive crowds, and then the news saying that there was tiny crowds. So I was like, I'm going to get some shots of these crowds. I did. I went up on the scaffolding and got some shots of, people on those streets, shoulder to shoulder, as far as the eye could see on Pennsylvania, on Constitution. I've never seen that many people in my whole life. There's probably 1 million at least.
That's what I've heard. Yeah. Okay. So, well, I do want to ask you about some specifics of the documentary. So one of the interesting narratives around this whole thing is the Ray Epps situation, right? And you cover that in the pretty much in the beginning, right? First, I guess, because I noticed that you mentioned the Samsil guy and Ray Epps, how they kind of coordinated, and then I think you guys pointed out that the Samsil guy in the beginning, he walked right past one of the U.S. attorneys that has been doing the prosecuting for much of the J6ers. Was the intent to show that there is a possible association there by
no, it was just to be factual. We're just kind of showing people names and faces, and we want people to decide on their own what they think is going on and what they think not be happening. And even I wouldn't even use the word collaboration when talking about the relationship between Ray Epps and Ryan Samsel. Ryan Samsel just happened to be there. Ray Epps is yelling in his ear, telling him who knows what, and then he goes through and breaks that first barrier.
Do we know who that
Samsel a lot of people
guy
don't
is?
notice.
His background? Do we?
He had a little checkered past, I think.
Are we talking about Ray Epps or Ryan
Samsel. Do we know who he is?
Yeah. So there have been allegations that he had like a criminal history with violent crime. Now, the way he tells it, it's actually more like allegations that actually didn't end up really going anywhere. So, it's a little bit of he said, she said on that one. A lot of people think he's a real patriot. Some people think maybe he's a Fed, or Antifa or whatever. We had initially kind of pinned him as maybe being Antifa because he put his hat backwards, and a lot of people were saying that's what people were going to say that they would do. And then he was the first person to put down the first barrier, really was the second barrier, but then he was seen standing next to someone who admitted to being Antifa. Taylor Hansen got on video, this girl, and saying, "Hey, I recognize you from Portland. You're Antifa, right?" And then you get a nod, right? And then Ryan looks at the camera and it's just get this blank stare. So we're thinking he's probably Antifa, but looking back, it's like it's not really enough to really prove he is. Whereas we've got people like John Sullivan, he is Antifa.
Well, John Sullivan,
Kenneth Copeland says after he's sentenced, "I'm Antifa," and there was 100 more of us.
That's proven, but he also could have CIA connections, according to some people. So
I don't know about
that.
that.
John Sullivan. I've heard that said, and I think that those the things people were going off of were not accurate.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But it would be something else that would prove that, and
he's
not the
just
things
a punk.
Been saying.
Yeah,
he was actually accused of being a Fed by Antifa before January 6th, so he's already got a reputation there. In that.
Yeah, I was there with the retired cop, Cook County Sheriff, and we went there for two things. We went there to see, go to the rally, and then we saw people that got beat up in November and December, if you remember, obviously.
Of course, yeah.
And we went there to keep people from being beat up. We saw that they were going into the hotels. We didn't know about the Capitol. We didn't know anything about an insurrection. We would have never went for an insurrection.
Of course.
All the people that were dressed the way they were, if you watch CNN and stuff, people think that they're dressed to go battle with the Capitol Police. That was not the case. It was to protect themselves from Antifa, to protect them from soup cans, frozen water bottles, all, bear spray, all the stuff that Antifa does. And people went there to protect themselves and others dressed like that. Nothing to do with the Capitol. There was no insurrection plan. There was no coordination. The coordination efforts was between the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and the Three Percenters was for Antifa. And another evidence is, if you remember the other events that occurred, before January 6th, Antifa was everywhere, right?
Yeah.
You just see a flag up there now, Jason. Antifa was everywhere, and it's kind of odd that at January 6th, there was no Antifa because they were dressed up and they infiltrated. And we have some pictures that we're going to show some of the Antifa guys that I had. I think I shared some of them with you, right? I think they're more feds because Antifa, you could tell the difference between an Antifa guy and someone that's trying to pretend an Antifa guy. All the Antifa guys are pasty white, basement dwelling pencil necks, almost all of them that I've encountered. And somebody that's trying to fake an Antifa, like the guy that I caught that we'll show in a little bit. I don't think he was Antifa. He's either a confidential informant or he was working with the feds and purposely trying to egg people on by telling them to take the pictures.
I want to comment on a few of the things you said before I forget. So a lot of people don't realize that Proud Boys specifically got stabbed in both November and December. And when they came, you're talking about the way they were dressed. These people were wearing vests, right? And the government will make it sound like they're wearing basically vests because they're going into battle to defend themselves against police. They're wearing bulletproof vests. No, they were not. They actually used those things and they put cutting boards in them because they weren't bulletproof. They were knife proof. And police don't carry knives. Antifa and BLM carry knives. And they got stabbed in November. They got stabbed in December. And they wanted to be safe from being stabbed in January by Antifa and BLM. And it's very interesting that you mention and point out that they didn't show up in colors that day, right? Because you got BLM, you got Antifa, and they're all black bloc, right? Even the Proud Boys decided we're not going in colors on January 6th. If you're going, you're just going as you. And so what happens is, these Antifa, when they show up on January 6th, for one thing, they don't show up, right? There's only a few. Right. But the ones that did show up, they didn't show up in black bloc. They showed up dressed like Trump supporters. And there's video and Discord stuff of John Sullivan explaining how he infiltrates and how he dresses like Antifa or like Trump supporters so that they think he's one of them when he's actually not a Trump supporter. Yeah, and he's the guy who ends up, you could partially say he's responsible for why Ashley Babbitt actually got shot, because he went in there and got the police to move from their position where they were in front of that door before then someone else breaks that window and then someone else pushes her through there and then she gets shot.
Yeah, in the hotel that morning, we were told to look out for guys flipping their Trump hats backwards, right? And so
and that rumor actually started a long time before. Actually, I think over a year before that Antifa, when they infiltrate Trump rallies, that they would put their hats backwards. And I've got the receipts on that. I've got pictures of them saying that for various rallies. But that really was spread around a lot before January 6th. And so most Trump supporters that day had that on their mind, that there's going to be Antifa here and they're going to be dressed like us, but they'll have their hats backwards so they could know. And whether or not that's actually true is hard to say, but there were people doing that. So
I have pictures myself, and part of the reason what we were told that they do that is because Antifa and BLM are from different parts of the country, right? So they wanted to be able to identify each other amongst the patriots, so that hey, he's with you and stuff. And I have some photos as well, and it was kind of odd to me in the midst of all this excitement, energy, frustration, disappointment, all these different emotions you probably experienced, right? That there was people standing stationary in many different spots by themselves. Like I went with my friend. People went with groups of people. There was old people, young people, ladies. There was patriots. but there's like people standing by themselves, right? Which is really odd. And then yelling, "Get up front. We need more troops. Get up front," or the guy that I got, take pictures, show the world, standing by themselves, spread out throughout the whole group around the Capitol. Those people were working together in a coordinated effort.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it a lot of the time. So, I mean, hopefully the truth comes out on all of this. A lot of it's speculation, but there's a lot of things that aren't speculation, right? Like people go, what if Ray Epps was a Fed? What if he was in the FBI? And it's like, yeah, what if? But what about the FBI people whose names we know? What about the informants who we know were in the FBI, inside the Proud Boys, inside the Oath Keepers, inside the Three Percenters, the undercover MPD, the undercover Capitol Police? Like we know that there were feds of all kinds there that day. We don't need to wonder if there was any entrapment happening. We saw them opening the doors and the gates and waving people in. We don't need to wonder if there was undercover. It's in the court documents. It's on video. We don't need to wonder if there were undercover police saying like, move forward and, oh man, somebody's going to get shot and all these types of things. We've got it all on video. We've got them saying it. So it almost doesn't matter if Ray Epps is a Fed because we've already got the other feds.
Right. So let's stay on that. So there's a lot of it's okay. We've heard a lot of people speculate that it was a false flag. I mean, again, that's all speculation until we get all the.
I think it's speculation that it wasn't a false flag.
Well, yeah. So, but let's cover that, right? So again, we know that there were FBI informants in the crowd. This has been talked about. We know that the police let people in certain areas. We know that they didn't have the National Guard available when they could have. We know that
it was requested.
Right, exactly.
Turned it down.
We know that Antifa was in the crowd. We know that there were agent provocateurs. We know Ray Epps seems suspicious. What's your perspective? Was this premeditated? Was this coordinated? Do you think do you think there's evidence for that?
Yeah.
I think there's evidence that it was premeditated, and I think a lot of that evidence hasn't come out yet, while some of it has. And I think it's also quite likely that a lot of what happened was spontaneous and on both sides, right?
Sure, yeah.
So probably people just got upset for whatever reason and they did things maybe they shouldn't have done who were just regular patriots.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of what that stuff happened was because police actually, like I said, fired into the crowd, or they started beating people or launching grenades, and people were like, what in the world is going on? This just doesn't seem right. So they would fight back, right? And even if it's a cop, like if they're doing something under color of law and it's not rightful, it's not lawful, like if people fight back in that sense, it's not even illegal. So some of that stuff, if you have a fair jury, you might get off on that. But there's no fair juries in DC. But that's a little bit going off topic. Like, I think the fact that Nancy Pelosi and Muriel Bowser actually turned down the National Guard when Trump requested it is, to me, the biggest smoking gun of this is a setup, right? Because they knew they had the intel, and we've got all that stuff. Actually, I should plug this anyways. StopHate.com/J6. That's actually where all the calls to action are to help J6ers. But one section of that website, you can click on research, and there's a bunch of sections on there. We've got a section about Antifa, so don't be curious. Like, click on it and know the facts instead of wondering. We've got the facts on the Proud Boys. We've got the facts on the Oath Keepers. All the lies about them are revealed. How the Proud Boys did not plan to even go in the building that day. They were just, like you said, going to protect people from Antifa or protect themselves from Antifa. Same type of stuff with the Oath Keepers. We've also got a whole page about intel. And what that is it talks about what they knew in advance, right? Mm-hmm. So it's important to note that it's not just that they had people in the crowd, but they had people embedded in these patriot groups, right? Mm-hmm. Jeremy Brown of the Oath Keepers was asked in advance of January 6th, will you be an undercover for us? He recorded it all. Mm-hmm. He posted it. Then they arrested him. He's in prison now. And it's not because of what he did. It's because they don't like that he exposed that they were putting these plants and feds in all groups. But the fact that they have these people implanted in the groups, and you can even look at court documents having to do with the Proud Boys, right? They had this guy in the Kansas City Proud Boys who was with them there, texting the FBI operative while he's with them in the building, saying the Proud Boys are doing nothing wrong. They're helping clean up. Like, And so
Yep, I
basically,
remember that.
their informant actually is the one exonerating them, and yet they're still not getting exonerated,
There's
right?
a
They're
fine
still
line
doing
of
time. They're
entrapment
still
here,
getting
right?
convicted.
A fine
What's
line
that?
of entrapment here, Daniel. Like, look to the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping case.
Right.
There's a lot of parallels between
A lot.
what the FBI was
they've
embedding
been
themselves.
doing
Yeah, well,
They've
one
been doing
very
that
important
forever.
parallel between that is quite literal. The guy who was in charge of the Detroit field office when that happened in
Right.
Michigan, Stephen D'Antuono, actually got promoted to be in charge of the FBI field
Right.
offices in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
The same one that's before, during, and after January 6th, the same one that's actually in charge of what kind of undercover operations would be going on.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
So
Facts.
the guy in charge when that setup happened was the guy in charge when this happened, and how could that not also be a setup?
Daniel, you know what I thought was obvious as well was all those people there, they didn't have one porta potty, right?
Well, that was on purpose too.
Yeah, that was
They wanted to deter Trump supporters from being there, and they were getting hotels closed down and restaurants and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I had I was with my cop buddy, and we walked all the way over there, by the food trucks. Remember the food trucks right outside the Capitol there? And they had a couple porta potties. They were only for cops. And so my buddy just retired, and they still wouldn't let him. He's one of them. They wouldn't let him use the bathroom.
He had the wrong uniform.
Well, I mean,
on
think
that
about
day.
Joe Biggs, right? He's a Proud Boy. He actually went in the bathroom, went into the Capitol to use the bathroom, and he did. He went and used the bathroom, and he's in prison right now.
So, but the claim is not that there wasn't violence, that there wasn't probably Trump supporters that did break the law that day. The claim is that the conditions were perfect for something like that to have happened. And not only that, that they seem like they were coordinated in that way to have happen. Have everything happen that way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of paper trails. I mean, you can look at the radio comms of the guy in charge of the police telling him to launch, and then the guy shoots into the crowd. Well, he's saying to launch because people are supposedly throwing projectiles. You look at the video and they're not. So he's saying this, and then they do it, right? So that guy's culpable, if you ask me.
Yeah,
that's just an example.
Yeah, I
There's
saw that.
top-down stuff happening.
We'll show a couple pictures in a little bit here, showing guys get by us that got shot. But to your point that about the spontaneous, right? So there was people that had, like my friend that I was there with, right? 30-year-old sheriff. You wouldn't even think he was a cop, by talking to him. And he was so wound up, man. There's so many mixed emotions. I forgot what they call it with the crowd mentality. That herd mentality. Yeah. And I myself, January 5th, I was on IV and stuff for cancer, and I was exhausted. I talked my friend. I'm like, let's go. I said, let's go. We left before people got past that last police barrier of the Capitol between the what do you call it, the scaffolding? I was exhausted. I'm like, let's go. And he's like, no, let's stay. He was all riled up, and he's not that kind of guy. And you saw it, right? There's so much energy that was in this crowd, right? There's people that wouldn't have done those things. There's some people that did, because, again, they shouldn't have fought with the cops, but there's some people that saw people getting hit and shot, right? With the canisters.
Right. And then how can you even say in that case, right? Like, they just watched the cops kill someone in front of them, right? Roseanne Boyland. So if someone saw the cops do that, should they not fight with cops, like, to protect someone potentially else from being killed? Like, for all we know, some of the people fighting the cops that day saved lives.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be the one to say they shouldn't have fought with cops.
Yeah. What about Daniel? What about the lady that was pushed down the stairs? 60-year-old lady.
Yeah. Exactly. So if anyone saw that and then they got a little bit incited to fight with police, I'm not blaming them for that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not encouraging people to do that, but I'm just saying, like, legally there is such a thing as self-defense and defense of a third person. Like, that's a thing even in DC.
Hey, I wanted to ask you a question about something not related to the actual riot itself, but something that was in your film. One of the parts you had in there was when Paul Gosar was getting ready to challenge from Arizona the electors. And I know that there was, if I remember correctly, there was a bunch of lawmakers that were, not a bunch, but there was a handful of lawmakers that were getting ready to challenge the electors officially, and we knew about that ahead of time. And if I remember correctly, all of that had happened, and then when Congress reconvened, if I remember correctly, those lawmakers had just changed their mind because of the egregious events that had happened. A, do I remember that correctly? And B,
you remember that 100% correctly. That's exactly what happened.
So and then B, Do you think that's a bit strange because the two seemingly have nothing to do with each other? Like, why, if people had a legitimate challenge to the election, why would the quote unquote insurrection have anything to do with them stopping? Because the one thing isn't related to the other, right? Isn't that strange to you, or what's your perspective on that?
It's politics. It's not logic.
Right.
Yeah, because you're right. That wouldn't change anything. But, I mean, let's be real. Like, they're all traitors, They go in there and
Can't disagree with you on that.
they go in there and they just do what they really wanted to do in the middle of the night, right?
Yeah.
Because when we were there during the day, they were too scared to do it. So to me, everyone in Congress, it's political theater.
Mm-hmm.
The Republicans are rhinos. Paul Gosar is probably the only one who hasn't disappointed me in there. But we've got a few people who seem to be stepping up now. But where were they in the first moments of all this stuff? So I got a lot of questions. A lot of them, it seems like they're in there to get their soundbite, on whatever social media, so they can get their donations and stuff. But for all we know, 2020 isn't the only rigged election, and it's not just federal, but it's local, and it's not just general, it's the primaries. So do we really think that all these people in Congress got in fairly? And if they got in through rigged elections, whether they know it or not, are they going to be the ones actually fighting for election integrity? Or are they going to be ones fighting for J6ers? Do they care what their constituents think if they're actually getting in by a voting machine and not by their constituents voting for them? No, I'm just asking the questions.
No, I mean, we talked about a local thing that happened where 99% people asked the village council to do one thing and they overpowered, said no.
So I got an issue with some of my rhino friends that I have here in Illinois, establishment buddies. I know probably some of them are watching. So anyway, with the J6 and blame, how you remember how some of these Republicans, people no, you were there, you're a traitor, right? We're traitors just for being there, right? Not even knowing the facts.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine believing CNN like that.
Yeah, and I honestly blame the Republican Party for being partially responsible for the frustrations, the anger, the disappointment. Because if they would have said, I know they're all worried to say, there was cheating. No one said they had to say and claim there was definitely cheating. But you know what? Something fishy went on. We're going to look into it. They didn't even tell us that. You know what I mean?
Right. Just look into it. That's all we wanted.
They didn't even share you know what? Something doesn't make sense, or we promised to get to the bottom of it. None of that was said.
No.
So these people showed up there, and there's so many of them. The herd mentality and the frustrations, the anger, the disappointment, all those things came together.
By the way, there's mountains of evidence. There's mountains of evidence.
There is.
There is mountains of
evidence. And there's
evidence.
only more now than there was back then.
It's detailed.
We had plenty back then already.
Forensic. It has to do with the machines. It has to do with mail-in ballots. It has to do with everything. And this idea that 1 million people showed up to Washington, D.C. on a hunch or on a motion is just, it begs the question of, logic. There's no chance. And yes, as you said, Daniel, we've only seen that it's become more and more potent as time has gone on.
I mean,
and that the only thing that's happening at this point is the media is stopping it.
So Troy Niels, you like him, right? I imagine. Congressman Troy Niels from Texas.
I don't like any of them, but sure, I'll put him in my top 10.
No, I'm talking about for defending J6ers. He would go there, and he
hasn't done much, but I'll put him in the top 10.
Yeah, I thought so he helped me. I don't know if you know that he sent a letter to help me. Him and Matt Gaetz. Troy Niels.
Yeah, you want to talk about Matt Gaetz?
Yeah, sure. Yes. Let's hear what your thoughts on Matt Gaetz are. I'd love to hear that.
Okay, well, let me quote from Matt Gaetz.
I don't think we're gonna.
I love him. Yeah, the way you're saying that.
You're gonna turn me off.
Are you gonna love him now when I'm done saying this?
Right,
this is from May of last year. This is when he was talking about when the Oath Keepers, when they got sentenced for their convictions, and at the time, this was before the Proud Boys, these were the highest, longest prison sentences so far for J6ers, right? Mm-hmm. This is what he says.
Oh no!
They stood before a jury. They had every constitutional privilege afforded our defendants. They were found guilty of seditious conspiracy, and if they were found guilty of trying to literally overthrow the government, one, they're idiots. Two, they had no chance. And three, they probably deserve some punishment. I thought the sentences would be less than they were, so I was a bit surprised by the duration, but I wasn't particularly aggrieved by them. And I can send you the recording of that.
Yeah, what pisses me off is that, the most powerful country in the world, and people down there are going to overthrow it with a flagpole and a camera. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's so I had actually seen something, though, that I think it was the Oath Keepers, that in their trial there was like a few of them that were talking back and forth about saying that we need to overthrow the Capitol, that we need to do that.
It looks like that if you don't know what you're looking at. So what happens is they are sending text messages talking about the Insurrection Act, and it's really I think it just shows how dumb liberals are in the government. Really, they're deceptive. But like, if it's called the Insurrection Act, and you're saying we want Trump to go and do that, do you think that you're telling Trump to do insurrection? No. It's an act. That means it's a government thing. Like, it's legal. It's a law. You're telling them to do the lawful thing. It's named the Insurrection Act because it has to do with what is the protocol when there's an insurrection. Yeah. So and Dan, for them to say, because they're talking about the Insurrection Act, they want to commit insurrection, that is just completely deceptive. So here's the thing. They were saying that if Trump declares the Insurrection Act, what that does is that activates the militias to be able to be deputized under the president. And what they were saying, you can look at what they said beforehand, during, and after. It all follows. They never changed. What they wanted to do was to be able to protect people from Antifa, just like you were saying. And they would do this under an official capacity. So they had actually brought guns and left them in the hotel.
Outside of DC.
They were saying, if Trump just says the word, we got somebody who will go across the Potomac, bring us our guns, and we will go and fight for Trump legally and lawfully. Well, guess what? Trump never declared the Insurrection Act, so they never did it. They left the guns at home. And they didn't do any violence.
And that's because, if I remember correctly, the media had put out the narrative that he was threatening to use the Insurrection Act so that he could, not the militia necessarily, but activate the military and, start a civil war, right?
Well, either way, I mean, he could have done it and it would have been lawful, and he didn't do it, so it's a moot point. But they weren't saying, let's do this so we can overthrow the government. They were saying, let's do this so we can protect patriots from Antifa and BLM, which was always a need. And we know that because people got stabbed in December, people got stabbed in November, and they're still stabbing people. These people are psychos. The leftists, Antifa, BLM, they're like, the Antifa are like 75% transgender. They're mentally ill. They're violent. Like when I went to the Sacramento Stop the Steal, there was police in an area with fences around them. The Capitol building here, the Sacramento, Capitol building. There were patriots on one side, Black Bloc Antifa on the other side. They were tossing explosives literally at the police, glass bottles, Christmas ornaments,
Campbell's soup cans.
Guess what the police did? They pushed back the patriots.
They're the brown shirts. They're the brown shirts, right, Dan?
Are you familiar with the Bofang radios that that were being used down there? A lot of the Bofang radios.
Maybe that there were some, yes.
Yeah. So the whole purpose of the you might know this, maybe you don't, but the whole purpose of the Bofang radios was communication between the different organizations that were going to go after Antifa, right? So Antifa would comment. And a matter of fact, that night, that day when we were going to see Trump speak, I had a helmet and goggles to protect myself from soup cans and water, and and I walked out in front, and there's these other guys there, and I'm like, oh shit, should I get my helmet? Everyone laughed. They're like, no, we're not going to see Antifa until tonight, right? They come out at night and stuff.
Exactly.
There was no plan.
And there's even video of Proud Boys talking like that.
Yeah.
So go to stophate.com.
Yeah. And so
click on Proud Boys.
We'll come back. We'll be fighting them at night. And there was some Antifa guys. There was a couple of them that we could spot out, as we were walking from the monument over to the center, and they were spread out, and some of them had radios, and they had the white PVC thing with in their backpack, and you could tell who they were. I mean, we had a couple confrontations with, we called them out on the way.
You know why they do that?
Go ahead.
The PVC thing, it's because they want it to seem they want to have something basically as a weapon,
Yeah.
but they want it to seem like they just picked something up that happened to be there, that they didn't have the intent. Like, if you go there with something like that you brought with you.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like a legal thing that they kind of think of all these things in advance, and they're very nefarious and slimy.
That's why I had my aluminum flagpole that was sharpened at the end.
I mean, Antifa.
Yeah, but they're gonna take that out of context and write that down in a court document against you.
Yeah, right. I mean, Antifa is basically the brown shirts from the Nazi era, right? If you look at the parallel, they were thugs that went around. They're political thugs that went around beating up and intimidating everybody. And they weren't necessarily connected to the party, but then I mean, their flag is even similar. They're the same exact thing, and they don't seem to get the same justice as, say, the J6ers do.
Yeah. So Jason, we got a couple of little screenshots he's put. I sent him. We'll show just a couple. So make sure Danielle can see these too, right, Jason?
So Daniel, are you planning on doing another one? Because you've released one every year. So are you planning on you guys continuing this project on into perpetuity, or how's it?
If somebody wants to fund that, I am happy to do that.
All right, here we go. This is a confidential informant or Fed right there. That guy. You see him? I don't know if you can see him, Dan.
No,
Daniel,
I don't have anything
Daniel?
on my screen.
Oh, you can't see it.
He sees you.
I'll take your word for it.
1 second, he's going to show it. I want you to see this. There's apps. There's
Oh,
a
here
guy
we
that
go.
got shot. Yeah, we'll go through them again. That guy got shot right by us.
Yeah.
Some of these.
Yeah. That tear
There's
gas
on the
is no
way. That's
joke.
on the way there. You see the Capitol in the foreground.
Yep.
There's a white supremacist dog right there, insurrection dog. That was like there, right there. Look at that guy. Who goes somewhere like that, but dressed by yourself, right? Do you see that?
Who
Dan?
knows? Could be suspicious.
Yeah, right. He's telling everyone as they're approaching the Capitol, take pictures, everyone, show the world. There's apps right there.
Yep, there he is. And he was all over the front.
Yeah, he was.
So we've got a whole page on stophate.com of
On apps.
suspicious actors. And, it's like, we don't know if they really are, good or bad, but it's just like
You
these
did
people
tell
are
me a
suspicious.
couple of
check it out.
Patriots got sucked up on accident, I think you said, when we talked earlier. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, that does happen from
Yeah.
time to time. Somebody, they look suspicious. You draw some attention to them, then they end up getting arrested, and then you find out, oh, this is like a Christian guy, and
Like, oh,
whatever,
crap.
such and such happened.
Yeah.
Who knows? But at the same time, we just want the truth out there. So if it makes some of our guys look good, some of our guys look bad, the truth is the truth. So if you did something bad, maybe you get a little bit in trouble, but none of these people need to be in jail for 3 years, especially pre-trial. Nobody needs to be in jail or in
Right.
prison for 22 years. This is completely ridiculous. It's completely political. And like you guys said, the Antifa don't get in trouble. Like, these people burned down Minneapolis, right? They burned down a precinct. They burned down a federal courthouse in Portland.
Attempted
They're killing
murder.
cops. They're killing people. Like, they almost never get in trouble.
Mhm.
They hardly get arrested, and when they do, their charges get dropped. And if they ever do get sentenced, they're very low, and then they get out early. And it's like, it's just completely
I wonder
unfair.
how that happens.
Yeah, my
Yeah,
cop buddy
well,
that
there's-
was with me
There's
down
a lot
there.
of reasons.
I got a
There's
couple
a whole cabal.
I got my cop buddy that was with me there, and a couple ex-retired ATF guys. And when they're talking about all these things that happen, they're like, "Oh, we're lucky if someone gets arrested for fighting with us here in Chicago,
Yeah.
let alone going."
Yeah, exactly.
Even if you went in Chicago, even if you went and beat the heck out of a cop, right? You're not going to
Yeah.
get more than a year in jail unless it's really, really bad. You know what I mean? At the worst.
Yeah, and there's murderers getting let out of prisons in California on a regular basis. Literal murderers, where we've got grandmas in jail and grandmas in prison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, justice system is screwed.
So with the people that are getting arrested for trespassing, has any of them gotten sentenced yet?
Yeah, I did.
Just for trespass? You didn't go inside.
He did go inside.
I know I did go inside. Yeah, I was
I'm
inside
I'm
for
sorry, I'm talking
30
about
and 40 seconds.
trespassing.
People in the grass. Yeah, I mean, Jeremy Brown, he's been in prison
Well,
for several years.
That
He
was
never
a-
went. to
that's
the
a
building.
different case. They set him up.
What do you mean? What did he do?
Daniel.
Yeah, but do you want me to
Daniel,
go
wanna
through the
give Terry,
cases? 'Cause it's like there's like 1,400 basically right now.
Dan-
So yeah, several of them didn't go in the building at all.
Daniel, you want to do you have intimate knowledge of the Jeremy Brown situation?
I don't know if I'd say intimate, but yeah, obviously there's two different federal situations, one Florida based and one
It's pretty messed up.
DC based, but they're both really setups. You know, they basically said that he was, I guess, in possession of some kind of grenades or something. They didn't actually have any proof. They didn't have the DNA proof. They kind of, fudged all that stuff. So most people believe, and I think it's true, that that was just planted, the evidence against him. Yeah. And obviously the whole thing's just retaliation because
he was a special forces
was a
guy.
whistle. Yeah, he was military beforehand. He actually helped a woman that day who was, being pummeled.
Yeah,
that's the video. He never went inside the building.
Well, they tried to get him to be an informant beforehand, right? That was the original.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier in the interview.
You know what shocked me? If you remember Derek on the insurrection, is it Evans? I forgot his last name. Jeez, I was on my friend Mike Lauber.
The guy who's running for office.
Yeah. And I he got that video of I can't believe it took 3 years. There was a guy shooting off a firearm on the scaffolding. How did with the Antifa, sedition hunters? How the hell did that not come out 3 years ago?
Right.
I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. That's pretty weird. That I'm still not up to date on all the details with that one, but I'll say something else very similar and very strange. Within 1 minute of Ashley Babbitt getting shot, and I'm just telling you for time reasons because I'm not saying that I don't have any proof that it's related in any way, but at that same minute, there are multiple flares going off, multiple kinds of flares. There was one shot into the air like a signal flare. There was one guy on one side with a red flare, and he's wearing all black glasses, black hat. And that's like making a bunch of smoke go off. And then another guy on the other side has a red flare and a green flare. And no other time of the day, besides that one you just mentioned, did any flares go off. And at this moment, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going off all at the same time. And it also happens to be one time when the shots are fired.
So you're saying this is the exact same minute.
And right after that, Ray Epps and his people make their way out. So I don't know if any of those are related or not. It's just very, very interesting and strange, and most people don't realize that.
You're saying that the flares go off at the exact minute that Ashley Babbitt is shot?
Yes.
That is very coincidental, I would say.
I would say so too.
And of course, Ashley Babbitt gets shot inside the Capitol.
Right.
And you're saying these flares were shot outside the Capitol.
So one last question from me for you. When you put together this documentary, did anything surface that, just came to your attention that we didn't know, so many different things going on, or something just stood out as you looked, as you compiled this documentary? Anything just come to light while you're doing that you might not have noticed, like myself, just from being there, or something as the director and producer of compiling all this data and information?
Yeah, no one thing, just a bunch. I mean, like I said, the guy gets shot, the other guy's shoving the guy into the police line. There's when Ashley gets shot and all those flare goes off. There's the other 3 deaths. There's the grenades. There's all the police brutality. All those things really did, stand out. And to me, just
I got one more question.
They got to investigate this police brutality. Those people need to be the ones on trial.
Yeah.
Not people who were standing around singing, chanting, and petitioning.
I lied. I got 2 questions. One, when we got there that night, we got there about 12 midnight or something like that. We were at the Courtyard, the Marriott, I think. And we went to the garage was full, so we went to an outside parking garage, and I was trying to pay with the credit card, and a car of Antifa weasels pulled up, and they stopped at the end of the parking lot, and my friend was sitting there, and they're yelling that they're going to break out all the windows of all the out-of-state vehicles, and Rob got out. He's a big guy, and we start walking towards him. Of course, they took off, right? It was a little car of them. And then when we left on the 7th, we didn't park there, right? We're like, oh, screw that. So we parked further away. And there was cars there was a Mercedes of an older couples. They did go back and break out the windows on all those vehicles. Another thing, we were walking back to our hotel, and our phone started beeping. I got the screenshots when they called the 6 o'clock curfew. I don't know if I got the screenshots on my phone. I just happened to have it in my phone when it started in my hand. I'm looking. I'm like, oh, and I took a screenshot. And then we get back to the hotel, and we're starving. We couldn't get food, right? And so we're trying to order Uber, calling everywhere. And so then I went downstairs to talk to the manager to get food for us and some of the other folks that were there. And he said that Bowser said that they cannot use their kitchen. That was to punish us. I don't know if you were in a hotel.
Yeah.
The manager he was pissed off. So she said, he said that this and you know what? She won't even let me cook for you guys. I'm like, you're kidding me. This is the hotel.
Crazy.
He said no one's allowed to cook.
That's
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, I think the hotel I was at, they had all these little to-go boxes that they kind of already had prepared, fortunately. But yeah, I don't think they could use their kitchen either. It was weird. They were also locking people in the hotels.
Yeah, we were locked in the hotel.
It was very weird.
The National Guard was right in front of where we were. We were stuck in the hotel.
Yeah, and also a lot of people don't know about this. There was a vehicle of Antifa and this transgender Antifa with all these weapons that actually got arrested on January 6th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I heard
Let's talk about Trump supporters. They all had all the guns. Nobody had guns there. I mean, there was like 2 people with guns. They say Guy Reffitt had a gun, but there's only a picture of his holster. So I don't know if that's even proven that he had a gun. But obviously he didn't try to use it. And then there's Ibrahim, who's a literal Fed. He's allowed to have a gun. Mm-hmm. And then the one other guy, Chris Alberts, who again, he didn't try and use it. So very weird that they always try to talk about as if it was like some kind of armed insurrection. Well, meanwhile, that Antifa did have the guns. And what do you think happened with those charges?
Right. And the guns were kept outside of D.C. They were kept in hotels.
Right.
Storage. They were kept off. They were not. They were to what you said earlier. They were not.
Hey, real quick, what's your opinion on Ray Epps?
I really don't have an opinion on Ray Epps. All I'll say is the things that people are most suspicious about him for is obviously the day before he says, we need to go into the building, and everyone starts calling him Fed. And he's basically telling everyone to go in. He never goes in. And then he didn't get arrested for a long time. He finally gets arrested. The day after he gets arrested, he gets a plea deal. That didn't happen to anyone else. Everyone else has to wait for their plea deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that was weird. But the weirdest thing to me is you have people like on the J6 committee. You have like the New York Times, 60 Minutes, these mainstream media, Mockingbird media, puff piece, talking good about him.
Right.
Have they defended any other J6er? Name one. But they're doing these big articles. Oh, he's the victim of a right-wing conspiracy theory. Like, to me, that makes him seem more like he's a Fed asset than even what he actually did that day. Obviously, the other thing that's very suspicious is that a lot of people got charged for touching that sign they pushed over that one thing.
Right.
He also touched, but he didn't get charged for that. So that's another thing that's suspicious about him. But, honestly, who knows? He might not be. He might be. And the other thing to consider is, what if they are trying to feed into us thinking that just to get us all mad at each other? I mean, that's also another option. So who knows?
Yeah. Anything else?
That's it.
So why don't you tell everyone where they could check out your site again?
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of sites. I want people to know about, they can go to my site, Daniel Goodwyn, DanielGoodwyn. It's a Y instead of an I in Goodwyn.com. But stophate.com/J6 is where the calls to action are. But there's 2 projects that I'm working on right now that I really want people to know about. One is J6yellowribbon.com. And if people go there, if you make any donation amount of any amount to any J6er or J6 advocacy group, send a receipt, email it to us, tell us your address. We will send you a free yellow ribbon as a thank you, show that these people supporting J6ers are really heroes. And we really want to encourage people to be making donations to J6ers. We're really short on funds, and all of us, and I don't care who it is, if they're a J6er or a J6er advocate, just donate to them. We will hook it up. And even more than making a one-time donation, making recurring donations is really helpful. Even if it's $1, $5, $10. If you give $10 a month, you might not notice it, but if a bunch of people do that, it accumulates. We will notice it a lot. So that's one, j6yellowribbon.com. Another is amnestynational.org or livingheroes.org. This is an organization. We're working on a pen pal project, and we're trying to make sure that all the J6ers who are locked up, between 200 and 300 people right now, have someone writing letters to them. Right now, we've got about 30 people signed up, and we want to get people signed up for every single J6er who's in there. So we're currently scaling that up, and if people want to volunteer for that, we've got a few positions people can apply for. So you can go to that website and click apply at amnestynational.org, or if you want to write letters, go to livingheroes.org.
Yeah, we'll have you send that. We'll put it up on our website because this is important. A lot of people's lives, families were ruined, right? Unnecessarily. Even the guiltiest of guilty shouldn't be, so please send me that so we can try to get these guys some help.
People have died, right? In
4 people
custody.
died. Well, not only just 4 people died on January 6th, people have died since then who have committed suicide, for example.
That's what
Other
I
people
meant,
who have just died before they got justice.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a list of those if you guys want to read about it at stophate.com. Just click around on there. There's an article about it. The deaths of January 6 and 7, but also the death count about January 6th that's from then and after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, stophate.com. I looked at that site. It's got really, for people from our side that want the truth, and go check it out.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on.
No,
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Daniel. It's great to meet you. It's great to hear your story, and thanks for putting out those videos.
We'll cross paths somewhere at a J6 reunion or something. You might be seeing me on CNN now after this damn show.
Or in prison.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I said, it's like 1 in 3, so you're more than likely not going to get arrested. But I wouldn't be too overconfident. I don't want to scare people, but I'd rather people know the truth. It's really disgusting what these people are doing. They're just arresting people just willy-nilly, and it's very arbitrary. They'll charge them with things that are bogus. Like, it doesn't matter if you did anything wrong or not. They don't like you if you like Trump, so it's terrible what's going on.
So they would come and trick you and pretend they're
I actually had about $100,000 that I paid in legal fees.
Jeez.
And since I didn't end up going to trial, I got about 13 refunded. I raised 25. So I still got a lot to go on that if people want to donate specifically to me, but there's a lot of other people who need help with their fundraisers as well. They probably need it more than me. So just check out stophate.com/J6 and click on the donate button. You can find where the J6ers are. The Stop Hate Department of Defense is what we call it, SHDOD. That's where you can find out. We got over 100 fundraisers on there. Anyone we could find for J6ers.
Great job, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Good
to meet you, Daniel.
Thanks, buddy.
God bless.
Thanks. You too.
Well, that was interesting.
See ya.
Are we?
I'm ready. I'll see you later.
Yeah, Terry's about to. It's interesting. The flares going off at the same exact time as I didn't know that.
I was gone before then. I was gone before there was anyone past the police.
That's probably good because you would have got shot.
Thank God I was sick.
You and your big mouth would have been shot.
I was sick.
Yeah.
I mean, I was exhausted.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, hopefully you hang around, buddy, because I don't know. I mean, they're
gave me a headache.
Stringing these guys
like
up.
Nervous wreck again. It's like a roller coaster.
and then you go and you wear your yellow and black. I mean, it's like you're trying to put a sign around your neck. Just kidding.
I'm not gonna sleep
all right. So, hey, next week we've got Bill Nienberg of the Downers Grove, formerly of the Downers Grove Library Board. That is now a national story. We've got Gateway Pundit has covered it. Dan Proft covered it.
Yeah, we're gonna show the sex trafficking information that's going on inside the Pilsen.
Well, there'll be an
Venezuelan
article on
center.
that will show, and yeah. No, we could show the library article too. Yeah. Sex trafficking that'll be the main.
That's going to be the next step after drag queen story out.
Yeah.
They're grooming the kids for a life.
Yeah, well, we're not done with the Downers Grove Library.
No, we're not done with them. We're not done with the rhinos. We're not done with
them all. I mean, they're like the gift that keeps giving, to be honest.
Yeah.
And we forgot to
I'm
mention.
looking to see if the
big
story
big
came out
news
while
from.
you're
So speaking of the rhino fight, big news in Will County.
Oh, yeah.
Christina. I'm sorry, what was her name? I have the story. Christina Clausen.
Yeah, she beat a rhino
defeats
big time.
defeats a rhino conservative Tim Ozinga in Will County to become GOP chairman of Will County. So that's a big story. And
tomorrow, Jim said your story's coming out tomorrow. So tell everyone what's coming tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I've had 2 stories in Gateway Pundit on the Illinois Rhinos, and this third installment. So we kind of started at the top of the food chain in the GOP in Illinois. Then we brought it down a little bit closer to the county level of what's going on here. And tomorrow, Gateway Pundit's going to run a story about Sheriff James Mendrick, who has been weaponizing his office to intimidate Republicans in DuPage County, and he's just a poor excuse for a public official. He's a poor excuse for a law enforcement officer. He uses his office to try to intimidate people. And to threaten them that there will be potential law enforcement action on them. He can deny it all he wants, but we said some things on this podcast back in November, and then we contacted him about something that was going on in our organization, and we tried to reason with him, and he got mad at both Terry and I, and he sent a veiled threat to me over email, and he threatened Terry through proxy. Terry sent an email to his colleagues that Sunday night to say the proxy has said that the sheriff has said X, Y, and Z, and that they're going to try to arrest me, or that they're going to intimidate me, or try to find something like that. And subsequently, the next Tuesday, state police showed up at his house. Now, their reasoning was that he had said something threatening to Senator John Curran of Illinois. But I find it quite coincidental.
Well, it's bullshit because nothing happened.
I find it quite coincidental that that Sheriff Mendrick on Friday threatened Terry through proxy. And I have that email with the name of the proxy redacted in the story that's coming out, and I also show the state police picture from Terry's doorstep. So, I'm not suggesting or making a declarative statement that Sheriff Mendrick sent state police to Terry's house. I'm simply saying that he threatened. He
bragged about it.
He bragged about it. He sent a veiled threat to me via email. He threatened Terry via proxy that weekend, and then Tuesday the state police showed up at his house. So there's much more in the article to come out, and it's going to be a national story because it's a Gateway Pundit, and we're going to make sure to circulate that.
I'm jumping in again. One last statement here. So for parents and Christians and men of God, like he claims to be, how could a sheriff, as was stated in the ABC story, take money from a sex offender? A sex offender who supposedly has these other charges as well from, talking about what I did 35 years ago. The guy's got drug charges, impersonating a police officer, allegedly, assault charges, allegedly. And Sheriff Mendrick's had 5 years to respond to that ABC story about him taking money from this. And he said, I don't know. Well, from what we hear, it's not true. And he had 5 years to respond to that. Mm-hmm. He had an opportunity yesterday to respond.
I asked him
to
for
Gateway
comment.
Pundit.
And
what does he do? He attacks me. He doesn't say it's not true. It's false. So he has taken close to $100,000 supposedly from all this information from the other stories. And he kept it. He used it for his campaign. So if the guy...
And by the way, Terry, if everybody remembers, the old sheriff did not endorse him.
If he has any morals, right? For a lot of you parents that are watching this, he needs to donate that money he took from the sex offender to some kind of charity or something.
Especially if he's criticizing you for your record.
Yeah, he's a sheriff.
Right. And I reached out to him for comment on that, and he basically threatened me. He sent me the criminal statute in Illinois for harassing and obscene language. That was his response. He even, well, he said it first. He said this is another example of harassing and obscene, and there's a Illinois statute. I mean, it's in the story. You'll see it. You'll see it, Sheriff, because as I told you, I'm reaching out as a journalist to get your comment on a story from 2018 for ABC, and you decided to send a veiled threat to me about this Illinois statute. So it's in the story. And that's coming out. So people, everybody, you're going to get to see what kind of man this guy is, right? And now he's the vice chairman of the Republican organization. All
right. Well, thank you, everybody. Good night.
Yeah. Have a good one.